4,600 years ago, without steel, hoists, or cranes, the ancient Egyptians built a 6 million-ton megastructure. This is the Great Pyramid of Giza. For over 4 millennia, it has stood tall in the Egyptian desert. For most of human history, it was the tallest building in the world. From the very beginning, it was not built to last a few decades or centuries, but for eternity. This was originally the residence of the pharaoh after he became a god. Over thousands of years, it has survived earthquakes, weathering, wars, and countless lootings by tomb raiders. British explorers once used explosives to force open its passages, and even modern internet influencers have gone inside to film. Yet the stones placed 4.5 millennia ago still lie there quietly today. The entire pyramid is constructed from about 2,300,000 massive stones, with some weighing up to 50 tons, making it one of the heaviest artificial structures in human history. Even more incredibly, its construction precision is astonishingly high. The base covers an area equivalent to 7 city blocks, yet it remains almost perfectly level with an overall margin of error of less than 3 centimeters. Its 4 faces align almost flawlessly with the 4 cardinal directions. All of this happened millennia before the invention of the compass. To this day, people still cannot fully determine exactly how it was built. To truly understand this magnificent structure, we will completely reconstruct its framework and explore 3 classic theories regarding its construction methods. This is the pyramid, an engineering miracle hidden beneath thousands of years. The story begins with one man named Khufu. He was a pharaoh of the 4th dynasty of ancient Egypt and the wealthiest, most powerful ruler in the world at that time. In ancient Egyptian belief, a pharaoh would become a god after death and attain eternal life. Therefore, he needed a dwelling that could accompany him for all eternity. This tomb not only had to be sturdy enough to protect all his wealth, but also magnificent enough to be remembered forever by future generations. His father, Sneferu, also a pharaoh, was buried in a pyramid as well. It was Sneferu who truly allowed Egypt to master pyramid building technology. However, Khufu felt his father's work was still not perfect enough. He wanted to build an unprecedented miracle to bring greater glory to Egypt and make his own name forever surpass his father's. In his eyes, such a massive project would become a great endeavor for all Egyptian people to participate in together. When everyone witnessed this feat with their own eyes, they would remember their king forever. To accomplish such a plan, there was only one prerequisite. The country had to be rich and powerful enough. Fortunately, Egypt possessed all of this at the time. The Nile River flooded regularly every year, bringing fertile black soil to its banks. Stable agricultural harvests provided the country with a continuous surplus of food. This wealth not only fed a massive labor force, but also maintained a standing army. The army constantly waged wars outward, bringing the wealth of neighboring countries back to Egypt. Therefore, Khufu had all the resources needed to build a megastructure. But wealth was only the first step. He also needed a true genius to design his palace to eternity. This person was his half-brother Hemiunu. In the eyes of many historians, he was the most outstanding architect of his time. The pyramid he designed would absolutely not just replicate his father's work. Compared to any previous pyramid, it was grander, more complex, and much safer. The main body of the entire pyramid was almost entirely composed of massive stones. Inside, 3 burial chambers were planned, each with different passageways. The first chamber was located underground, so that if Khufu died before the project was completed, he could be buried immediately. The second chamber was hidden behind a false wall to confuse any future tomb raiders. The path leading to the true burial chamber was a majestic gallery, known as the famous Grand Gallery. Its towering corbelled stone roof made it a masterpiece in ancient Egyptian architectural history. The actual king's chamber was built entirely of giant blocks of pink granite. These stone materials came from hundreds of kilometers away and were cut so perfectly that a razor blade could barely fit into the seams. In the center of the chamber, a granite sarcophagus quietly awaited Khufu's final rest. Once the entire project was finished, the exterior of the pyramid would be covered in a layer of smooth white limestone. Under the sun, it would shine like a mirror, and under the moonlight, it would emit a silvery glow. At the very top, a gold-clad capstone would be placed. With this, Khufu's stairway to eternity would finally be complete. Hemiunu had no time to waste. He had to finish the project as quickly as possible, ensuring that at least one of the burial chambers was ready for use before Khufu's death. According to the plan, the entire project was expected to be completed within 20 years. Calculations show that building this pyramid required about 25,000 workers. For ancient Egypt, which had a total population of around 1 million at the time, this was truly a nationwide endeavor. Thus, the large-scale recruitment of laborers officially began. But here comes the problem. How exactly did these ancient Egyptians build the pyramid? The answer is that to this day, no one truly knows. Archaeologists have debated this question for centuries. As more archaeological discoveries and engineering analyses emerge, various new construction theories continue to be born. Next, we will focus on 3 mainstream theories that currently have solid scientific backing, looking at them in order of easy to understand, medium difficulty, and most complex. The first theory is the most intuitive one, the ramp theory. Imagine being asked to move a massive stone, weighing as much as a large city bus, to a height of over 130 meters, with a dozen colleagues. The only tools your boss gives you are ropes, wood, and rubble. What would you do? The simplest method is to build a ramp, tie ropes to the stone, and have dozens of people pull it up the slope step by step. As the pyramid grows taller, the ramp is continuously raised and extended. Sounds reasonable, right? In fact, for a long time, most Egyptologists supported the external ramp theory. This is because a wealth of archaeological evidence proves that ancient Egyptians did frequently use large earthen and stone ramps when constructing massive buildings. But the real problem arises when the pyramid gets higher. To pull a 2-ton stone block, about 12 workers need to exert force simultaneously. As the height increases, the ramp only has 2 choices. It must become either steeper or longer. If the slope is too steep, the burden on the workers increases drastically, making transportation nearly impossible. According to engineering calculations, a slope of about 8% is a reasonable limit for average workers. Consequently, to reach the 147-meter summit, this ramp would become incredibly long, potentially exceeding 1 kilometer in length. Building such a ramp would consume millions of tons of material, and its total volume could even reach 3 times that of the pyramid itself. More importantly, archaeologists have yet to find any remains of such a massive ramp. If it had truly been built, it would have been a megastructure in its own right, perhaps taking decades to complete. And Khufu obviously could not wait that long. So another improved scheme was proposed. Since a straight ramp is too long, why not have the ramp spiral upward around the pyramid? Just like a winding mountain road extending upward layer by layer. As each level is built, the ramp continues upward and could ultimately even become part of the pyramid's structure. This idea is quite clever. It not only saves space, but also explains why no traces of large ramps can be found today. However, a new problem emerges. The angle of the pyramid's 4 sloping faces must always be maintained at exactly 51.9 degrees. Surveyors needed to constantly calibrate the position of each edge because even a deviation of a few centimeters at the base could expand into several meters of error at the top. If the exterior was constantly obscured by a spiraling ramp, surveyors would be almost unable to continuously observe the entire edge line, easily resulting in a lopsided pyramid. The reality, however, is that the Great Pyramid of Giza is practically flawless. Thus, the first theory once again fell into controversy. This leads us to a second, much bolder construction proposal. The story takes place in the 1990s. French engineer Jean Pierre Houdin was watching a documentary introducing the pyramid's construction process. The film utilized the external ramp theory. However, as an engineer, he always felt something was off. So, he called his son, who was also an architect, to ask for his opinion. At that time, Jean-Pierre knew almost nothing about ancient Egypt and had never even seen a pyramid in person. But precisely because of this, he was not constrained by traditional theories. He studied it obsessively for years and finally proposed a completely new construction theory. Initially, most Egyptologists did not accept his views. The reason was simple. He was not an archaeologist, but a French engineer. In this relatively closed research field, an outsider's ideas were rarely taken seriously. Yet, as more details were presented, this theory gradually attracted increasing attention. The truly brilliant aspect of Houdin's work is that he completely put himself in the shoes of the architect Hemiunu from over 4,000 years ago and reconstructed the entire project. According to his vision, Hemiunu did indeed build an external ramp, but this ramp was only responsible for the early stages of the pyramid's construction, reaching up to about 60 meters. What is even more special is that this ramp was not a temporary road made of rubble. Instead, they used the limestone blocks meant for the upper layers of the future pyramid to build it. This way, when the project entered its later stages and the ramp was dismantled, those blocks could still be used directly to continue building the pyramid. The early external ramp was not only responsible for building the massive lower structure, but also took on the crucial task of transporting the giant granite beams for the king chamber. But here is the catch. It was nearly impossible for just a few hundred workers to drag granite blocks weighing dozens of tons inside such a confined space. Therefore, Houdin proposed an even more ingenious idea. He believed that the 46-meter-long Grand Gallery was not actually a ceremonial passage, but a massive counterweight lifting system. Located on the opposite side of the external ramp, it utilized its own length and slope to create a leverage effect, helping workers hoist the giant granite beams up to the king chamber. In fact, the Grand Gallery has always been one of the most mysterious spaces in the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is tall and narrow, with continuous protruding stone corbel structures on both sides. These designs puzzled archaeologists for a long time, but Houdin believed these stone corbels were highly likely transport tracks. Wooden sleds would slide along the stone tracks, with the other end connected to the heavy giant granite blocks. Meanwhile, at the top of the Grand Gallery, sleds loaded with a large number of counterweight stones would slide down, using gravity to slowly pull up the giant stones on the other side. The entire process was exactly like a giant elevator from over 4,000 years ago. Interestingly enough, inside the Grand Gallery, archaeologists have indeed found traces of repeated friction. Some believe this might be the physical evidence left by long-term transportation of heavy objects. While this cannot be fully proven yet, it at least provides a brand new explanation for the purpose of the Grand Gallery. Once all the granite beams were in place, the external ramp also completed its mission. As the pyramid grew taller, continuing to rely on an external ramp was no longer realistic. So the workers began dismantling it, and those removed limestone blocks were directly used to keep building the pyramid. The true transportation route then shifted to the inside. Houdin believed that hidden within the pyramid was a spiraling internal transport tunnel. Just like the winding upward ramps inside a modern parking garage, it extended upward layer by layer, maintaining a slope of about 7%. After moving forward a certain distance, it would turn near the four corners of the pyramid and continue extending upward. As the pyramid gradually narrowed, each level of the ramp became shorter. The total length of the entire internal ramp exceeded 1 kilometer. Transporting massive stones on smooth limestone using wooden sleds was not difficult in itself. The real challenge was how to turn stone blocks weighing several tons every time they reached a corner in a passage less than 3 meters wide. To this, Houdin proposed another hypothesis. He believed that a relatively large open space was reserved at every corner position. Workers could use wooden levers or simple lifting devices to slowly adjust the direction of the giant stones before continuing the transport. These spaces could also serve as places for workers to take short rests. Surprisingly, at a height of about 83 meters above the ground, archaeologists did find a notch structure that had been unexplainable for a very long time. Houdin theories regarding the Grand Gallery counterweight system and the internal ramp perfectly explain the two biggest difficulties in the pyramid construction process. First, how exactly were stone blocks weighing several tons transported to such a high position? Second, how were the 50-ton granite beams transported above the king chamber without hundreds of workers dragging them simultaneously? However, if Houdin theory holds true, the entire internal ramp system would be exceptionally complex. The transport route would have required meticulous design to ensure that stone blocks could reach the top without colliding with the already built burial chambers and passages inside. As a result, many scholars have questioned it. Some argue there is currently a lack of sufficient archaeological evidence to support the existence of an internal ramp. Others feel that rather than designing such a complex hidden passage, it would be much better to adopt a simpler external ramp plan. But supporters counter by asking, since the ancient Egyptians had already reached such an astonishing level of architectural precision, why could they not design an equally ingenious transportation system? Some have even proposed bolder ideas. In 2024, a series of research findings once again captured global attention. Many media outlets even proclaimed that the mystery of the pyramid construction had finally been solved, and this time, the key clue came from the Nile River. Today, Giza Plateau is several kilometers away from the Nile, leaving only a dry desert. But over 4,000 years ago, the landscape here might have been completely different. A 2024 study combined radar satellite remote sensing and underground sediment drilling analysis to discover a long-lost ancient branch of the Nile. Amazingly, this ancient river channel passed right by most of the pyramid sites. Researchers believe the builders back then very likely used this river channel to transport heavy stone blocks directly to the foot of the pyramid, eliminating the need to drag them all the way from distant quarries. Many scholars consider this highly plausible, but the questions do not end there. Horizontal transport is solved, but what about vertical transport? Another peer-reviewed study published in 2024 proposed an even bolder hypothesis, suggesting that ancient Egyptians might have utilized hydraulic power. In other words, they might have built a hydraulic elevator. Actually, this idea is not appearing for the first time. It had long been regarded as a fringe theory in Egyptology, dismissed as the fantasy of amateurs and lacking any supporting evidence. Now, however, the situation seems to have changed. A research team gathered experts from multiple fields, like hydraulic engineering, mechanical engineering, and geography. They believe early Egyptian pyramids might have used a floating wooden platform to slowly lift giant stones to high places, significantly reducing human labor. The working principle of the entire system is not complicated. Rainwater and floodwater were first channeled into nearby dam-like water retention structures, and then delivered through underground channels into a vertical shaft in the center of the pyramid. This shaft ran straight through the interior of the pyramid, like a giant chimney. A massive wooden platform floated inside the shaft. Workers would place stone blocks on the platform and continuously adjust the water level by controlling valves at the bottom. As the water level rose, the platform slowly ascended. As the water level dropped, the platform returned to the ground. The entire process was literally a hydraulic elevator from over 4,000 years ago. Researchers believe this system could lift stone blocks at least a dozen meters high, after which workers would use the internal transport system to continue construction, completing the entire pyramid from the inside out. This theory could even explain another phenomenon: why the pyramids built later in Egypt became smaller and smaller. Researchers believe that as the climate gradually became drier, the water volume of the Nile decreased and could no longer provide enough water to drive this hydraulic system. As a result, people had to rely heavily on human labor again to move stone blocks, causing the size of later pyramids to shrink as well. Nevertheless, this theory remains highly controversial. Renowned Egyptian archaeologist Zahi Hawass publicly stated that this claim is completely wrong, because the pyramid studied in the paper is completely different from the Pyramid of Khufu in both scale and structure, and the stone blocks used are much lighter. If the Pyramid of Khufu truly used a hydraulic lifting system, it would definitely require much larger and more complex engineering facilities. Yet to this day, no similar shaft structures have been found inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. In contrast, numerous remnants of various ramps have long been discovered in abundance at ancient Egyptian ruins. Therefore, the mainstream academic community currently still leans more toward various ramp transportation theories. Of course, there are other scientific hypotheses attempting to explain the details. Some experts even suggest that multiple ramps could be built simultaneously from 4 directions to shorten construction time. But to this day, not a single theory has gained unanimous approval from all scholars. So when you see someone claiming to have finally cracked the mystery of the pyramid, it is best to maintain a bit of skepticism, because everyone wants to be the one who truly solves the puzzle. As the only surviving structure among the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Great Pyramid of Giza is incredibly ancient. Even to Cleopatra, it was already an ancient relic. What is even more bizarre is that for such a megastructure, we have never found any complete design blueprints. The ancient Egyptians left behind tax records, love letters, ledgers, and even receipts for buying donkey feed 4,000 years ago. Yet the blueprints for building the pyramid have never appeared. Were they lost, deliberately destroyed, or are they still hidden in some unknown corner? No one knows the answer. However, modern science might be getting closer to the truth step by step. In 2017, scientists used muon imaging technology to discover a mysterious massive void inside the Great Pyramid. To this day, people are still unable to enter it. Some believe it is merely a structural space left empty to relieve internal pressure and prevent the burial chamber from collapsing. Others think it might exactly confirm the counterweight transport system proposed by Houdin. Still, others guess that this might be Khufu's true burial chamber, because to this day, the mummy of Pharaoh Khufu and his burial treasures are still missing. This has also become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Perhaps behind that mysterious void, even more undiscovered secrets await. Perhaps behind that mysterious void, even more undiscovered secrets await. But you see, when we look back at this entire journey, we realize the Great Pyramid is not just a massive pile of lifeless stones. It is the ultimate testament to the limitless power and potential of humanity. Thousands of years ago, without any modern technology, our ancestors created a true miracle through patience, brilliant intellect, and absolute teamwork. What is the greatest lesson this monument leaves for us today? It is that our only true limit is our own imagination. No matter what monumental challenges you are facing in your life right now, always remember that humanity once built an eternal wonder with nothing but primitive tools and an unbreakable will. Of course, all the theories we just explored regarding counterweight cranes, hidden internal ramps, or hydraulic elevator systems are simply information I have personally researched, synthesized, and analyzed. Because these are my personal perspectives, they could be completely right, or they could be entirely wrong. Nothing is absolute. That is exactly why I really want to hear from you. Which theory makes the most sense to you? Are these research findings true or false, right or wrong? Do you think the ancients actually possessed some secret lost technology that modern humanity has yet to uncover? Please leave your thoughts down below, because I truly want us to build an open-minded scientific debate community right here on TIAN My Science. And by the way, I am always so curious about how far our videos travel across the globe. Where in the world are you watching this video from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments and let me know. I will be waiting to chat with you in the comments section. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Take care, and I will see you on our next